This is our nature preserve, Crosby Sanctuary. It's in Orange Park off of Blanding Boulevard to the west of Blanding and south of the Ortiga River. It's a large bottomland hardwood swamp that feeds into the Ortiga River. This is our entrance area. This is what you see as you're walking in the front. So kind of an overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the sanctuary and what its purpose and use is today. Look at some various photographs and then what our plans are. I've been involved with the sanctuary since the early 2000s, and so I've seen a lot of changes out there and improvements, and it's been a fun ride, and I've enjoyed being a volunteer out there for the past, someone reminded me, 20 years. Oh my gosh. So initially 150 acres was donated in December of '79, I believe, by J. Ellis and Addie Welch Crosby. And then another 198 acres in 1983. They were in the lumber business for a long time and owned the property and harvested timber out of the sanctuary, the swamp. They harvested a lot of the old growth cypress out of there, I believe, many, many years ago. It's pretty well recovered today. There's no old growth cypress out there, but there's some pretty big cypress trees. Nothing like you would see out at Corkscrew Swamp in southwest Florida, but maybe someday. Okay, so after 83, kind of stayed around the same size. Well, in between 85 and 2004, kind of grew another 85 acres. I won't go into the details of it, but part of that was donated when they built Target on Wells Road. Part of it was donated as mitigation for impacts to wetlands. And then in 2005, we were able to acquire the land behind our entrance, which is 8 acres, because it was like an old construction debris area that had become overgrown, and Taylor Morrison was done developing the Orange Park Country Club, which is on the north side of our sanctuary, but for some reason they had this piece of property which was disjunct from their development, so they gave that to us. And then we also acquired a quarter-acre lot to get an entrance that connected to the road, so we had road frontage instead of just a ditch easement. So now after that, that's when things really started happening, because we were like, okay, cool, we've got this entrance, we can start doing landscaping, we can have like projects and all kinds of stuff. So, and then the latest one was in 2016. We got really lucky and got a hot tip that Taylor Morrison had pulled out of the Northeast Florida area. They're a development company. We got a hot tip that they weren't paying their back taxes to the county. So we called them up and we were like, hey, we see you're not really paying that much attention to your property here. You want to donate it to us? So they said, well, yeah, we'll donate it to you as long as you pay, I think it was the closing costs or the back taxes they owed or something like that. But it was only $7,000. And you go on the property appraiser's website and it was valued at $250,000. So not a bad deal. So that's about what our total acreage is today. Now, this isn't the greatest map, but this shows a wide view of the area, and this is the sanctuary right in here. So you can see 295 running around the southwest side of Jacksonville, Blanding Boulevard. And I don't know what that is. I guess that's Brandon Field Chafee or something. Oh, one thing I wanted to point out while we have this zoomed out view is this is Little Black Creek, regular Black Creek down here, Ortiga River, and we're right here. So we're like at the, and there's a drainage divide here. So we're like at the heart of all these waterways and connections, habitat. The entrance is right here. It's off of Aquarius Concourse, and that's a subdivision called Bel Air Estates. And it's in Orange Park there off of Blanding. It's not open to the public every day. It's only open on the 3rd and 4th Saturdays of the month. So anyway, you can see the This is a good depiction of all the water channels and rivers and stuff. And it was heavily developed around back in the 70s, 60s, and even into the 90s over here with the country club. So there's a lot of development around, but you'd be surprised at how wild it seems when you get out there sometimes. It's a pretty secluded, deep, kind of heavily forested area. So that's kind of our purpose and use. So a little bit of numbers. Had about 500 visitors in 2020 to 2021. Again, work days, third Saturday, open house, fourth Saturday. Occasionally we have special events there or accept special requests for visit. And then we also conduct bird surveys out there throughout the year and collect information on eBird. So currently we're maintaining approximately 3 miles of walking trails, entrance lot, we've planted native landscaping all around the entrance lot, and we get all kinds of birds coming out, and it's really nice. You can see a lot of birds just right at the front in the beginning before you even walk in. So here's a couple of cool birds, and the one on the top, the Prothonotary Warbler, is kind of the gem of the sanctuary, if you will. It breeds out there in the summertime and then travels to Central and Northern South America for the winters. It's gone now. It leaves in August, but we saw them breeding, and we saw juvenile birds this year. We haven't always seen them, but somebody saw them feeding chicks or feeding juveniles this year. Oh, and the short-tailed hawk, which is another interesting type of hawk that not that many people see very often or are aware that we have in our area. And we think they breed out there. We see them out there fairly often, but not every time. Here's a picture of some of our volunteer activities. The top's Eagle Scout project, and then the bottom are just regular maintenance type stuff. These are some pictures from Saturday. These are the Ridgeview young adults, and they really enjoyed walking around out there and just soaking it in. They walked out the power lines that we have and looked at a beaver lodge that's out there. So we have beavers that built a lodge. Unfortunately, it's a little overgrown right now, but they marched right out there. I was surprised. For sure, but yeah, they found a few turtles out there the other day. And it's great to see kids just enjoying nature and picking up animals and tromping through the woods. And then we put them to work pulling torpedo grass and other undesirable plants out of our native plant garden. I don't like to call anything a weed because a lot of weeds are good. A lot of plants that are considered weeds are good plants, but torpedo grass is not one of them. There's another Eagle Scout project we did. They took care of everything and built a nice little seating area for us. There's a picture of our native plant garden. I had to put a fence around it, unfortunately, to keep the deer out. They like to munch. And we dedicated this garden to Carolyn Antman, who was one of our past presidents and very active members, who was instrumental out at Crosby and a lot of other things with our chapter, who is now, I guess, spending more time with her family in Central Florida with the grandkids. But yeah, Carolyn Antman. This is right after we planted it. It looks nice and crisp and clean, but it definitely doesn't look quite as neat as it does, or today as it does there. But that's not a bad thing, you know. Native plant gardens can be a little bit wild, and they actually benefit wildlife just as much. We put out Bluebird boxes and a number of other boxes a few years ago. We're a little bit in need of refresh, so we plan on putting new Bluebird boxes out soon, before the spring. Yeah, that's Walter from the Florida Native Plant Society, who is one of their longtime board members, and they came out and helped us cut and treat Chinese tallow trees, which is a constant battle out there. Chinese tallow are non-native trees that are very prolific, and they take over forested areas pretty quickly. Okay, now I'm going to get into some general pictures that I have of a lot of the plants, the flora out there. Beautiful eastern redbud. You see these in landscapes a lot. Carolina jasmine. It's a beautiful wintertime wildflower that you'll see blooming in February. Red maple. These are all early spring bloomers so far. Carolina laurel cherry. Here's a neat little swamp plant called grassleaf sagittaria, and that blooms in the early spring before the canopy closes. The leaves fill out and take away all the light. You can see it's getting some good sunlight there. Same with the violets. They take advantage. They bloom early as well to take advantage of more light. Epidendrum orchids, and we have habenaria species orchids out at Crosby. And I was walking out on Saturday, and right on the side of the main trail, pretty close, not too far in, is a habenaria orchid. It's a terrestrial orchid with like green flowers. It's about this tall, and its buds are just getting ready to open. So if you go out there this Saturday, you'll see it. I'll try to point it out to you, but it's
somebody probably need to point it
right on the side of the trail, though. You almost can't miss it. Who knew wax myrtle could be pretty, right? We have native azaleas growing in the forest out there. Red buckeye. Our swamp palmetto, sable minor, only grows in swamps. And it's kind of like cabbage palm, but it stays only about, it only gets about this tall. And it has the berry boring spike that comes up above, most of the time above the level of the fronds, just a little bit. It's kind of an interesting plant. You thought you were coming to hear about birds tonight, but I'm kind of a plant nerd, so here's a good bird berry-bearing plant that birds like, Walter's viburnum. So here's kind of a hardwood hammock view out at the sanctuary. It's really nice. In the northern part of the sanctuary, it has a nice grassy understory with native wood oats, and then kind of a nice semi-open canopy. There's a monster old live oak that lives out there in the hammock. And this is down near the power line, a little bit more of a pine forest area. And forget how this caught on fire. We haven't been able to do any prescribed fire out there, but every now and then a fire will break out, and this one got put out before it got too far out of control. Here's the main trail going up through the swamp. This is an old fill road that the power company put in, and maybe even before them, the logging companies used it. We're not sure, but it runs north-south from the entrance that I showed you up to the power line. That's just a kind of representative Bottomland Swamp photo. A lot of black gum and bald cypress. Got some ash, green ash, American elm, various other hardwoods. And then along the power line easements where it's maintained, the trees are maintained out so they don't interfere with the power lines. The wetland areas have formed some nice marsh habitat, which is always good diversity. We get all kinds of marsh birds in there. We get marsh wrens occasionally. We get a lot of house wrens, common yellowthroats. We've even seen American bittern out there before. Numerous other species. And we even have beavers living out. They live in the swamp, and they have their den, lodge, whatever you call it, in the power line, kind of out in the open. I don't think I have any pictures of the lodge. I don't know why I didn't put any in here.
It's hard to get a good picture.
Yeah.
I've tried several times.
But this is like the best picture of a beaver knob I've ever gotten in my life. It's like so fresh.
It's great.
It's got the typical like pencil shape to it or whatever. We get some pretty box turtles out there. These are some volunteers that found one, and they were curious and picked it up. And we started collecting remote triggered wildlife camera photos a number of years ago. So I picked out a few. So we wanted to see what was used. We'd see a lot of tracks and evidence of these wildlife on the trails, but we'd never see them because, they hear you coming a mile away, or you're not there when they're out there in the evening or at night. So raccoons, that's kind of a universal animal that people love to hate because they cause a lot of trouble getting in your trash, but they're kind of cool. Some decent deer out there. This is a cool one because it shows you, we used to walk down the trail and find these piles of leaves with poop all over them and be like, what's going on here? Well, apparently otters love to scrape up the leaves and roll in their own poop and poop all over the place and mark their territories. So this is what's going on. They're like little water dogs. And then, of course, got to have the Probably one of the top predators out there.
Wow.
A beautiful animal. This one wanted to pose. It's a great blue heron. Face only a mother could love. We get, the past probably 3 years or so, every summer we've been getting yellow-crowned night herons out there. And we think they're nesting out there. We've never seen evidence of it really, but they're there. They're beautiful. You can't really see it here, but they have a dark red eye and that crisp yellow crown. And these are, yeah. Even the vultures come down and hang out on the trail. Old Tom Turkey. So there's all kinds of wildlife out in this area, in the middle of Orange Park. So, okay, I wanted to just list out a few of our plans coming up for the sanctuary and good opportunities for donations. I've been planning, and I've got some grant money, and we're going to refresh our native plant garden a little bit. It's gotten a year or two since we did it last time, and it's gotten kind of sparse and overgrown. So we're going to do that. We're going to conduct more invasive plant control. That's a never-ending battle. We have a recent survey by volunteers that are knowledgeable in invasive plants, and they swept through and located a lot of the invasive plants that are still out there so that we know where they are so we can go attack them. I've been kind of waiting for the weather to cool off a little bit to go do that, but like I said, we're going to replace the Bluebird boxes, and we're going to put up some new bird feeders. Our bird feeders that we have out there now are getting a little worn out. We try to keep them filled up. We fill them up on the 3rd Saturday at the work day so that they still have seed in them for the following weekend when people are out there. We don't keep them full all the time because that would be kind of a waste just to fill them when nobody's really going out there. So, but for when times when people are out there, it's good to have a couple feeders to attract birds. Yeah, one thing I've been wanting to do, Jessica, who lives near there, made a good suggestion that might be a good place to put a chimney swift house. And I kind of looked into it, but I haven't had a lot of time to look into it more, and I would like to kind of determine, do a little bit more analysis if it's feasible. Even if we built it, if they would even come, is it like a good location where they would be attracted to a house if we put it there? So if anybody wants to help me do that, please feel free to volunteer. Yeah, this is just something we noticed the other day when the bridges were wet and we were walking out there. Grippy material on the bridges. We recently built a new restroom. We didn't build a structure, but we have a tent that it lives in, and we have a new restroom feature out there. Instead of a portolet, which is essentially a chemical toilet that uses harmful chemicals to treat and contain the waste and stuff, we've installed a compost toilet out there. So it's a beautiful thing, and it works very well. And it's a lot cheaper than a portolet. Conduct analysis. Somehow that made it in there twice. But yeah, this one I kind of said I need volunteers to help research and discuss. So an opportunity for anybody that wants to. A little bit down the road that we could use donations and funding for is to build a bird blind. I've always wanted to do that out there. It's a little bit of a haul to get all the materials out in there to build it, but we could do it. And it would be a great thing, I think, to have a bird blind out there, because then we could see a lot more. We could just have a spot for people to sit and kind of wait for the birds to come out and come to them. And then Rich suggested this, a simple covered shelter at the entrance area for shade or rain protection for volunteers if they're out there and a storm moves in. Right now we have some sheltered, shaded areas under trees, but we don't really have anything that's weatherproof as far as rain goes, so that might be a good thing. So that's another opportunity for donations. And I think that's all I have. Let's see, yeah. With that, there's my contact information if you want to ask me any questions later. Yeah, so come on out any Saturday, 3rd or 4th Saturday. We'd love to have you.